Okay, next update. And all of these updates videos I'm uploading today are going to go into episode 351. Next one is, you remember, it's been a while. It was back in 2022. There was a case against JPMorgan Chase Bank that was filed by the United States Virgin Islands. Okay, we kind of forget about the Virgin Islands, but they're part of the United States. In fact, I mean no offense, but the only time I think about the Virgin Islands really is when it has to do with Epstein, or it has to do with their incredibly, how do I say it? Very annoying and stupid representative that they have in the House, who seems to find her way into hearings all the time and make a scene. But you may remember that the Virgin Islands brought a case against JPMorgan Chase Bank back in December 2022. And it was over their business dealings with Jeffrey Epstein, and how the bank was aware of Epstein's plea deal and his activities and the allegations against him. And they continued to do business with him to the tune of millions and millions of dollars. He had accounts with them, and they had meetings about who he was and whether or not they would continue with him, and decided to continue with him. And the United States Virgin Islands, plus some Jane Does, decided to sue Epstein, or rather Epstein's estate, and also sue the bank, JPMorgan Chase Bank. They also sued Deutsche Bank and some others. This is one of a number of lawsuits that are out there, both civil and criminal, right? Well, this case ended up going on for a couple years, and I think it was earlier this year they reached a settlement. Now, the complaint alleged, like I said earlier, that JP Morgan knowingly facilitated, sustained, and concealed the human trafficking network operated by Jeffrey Epstein. And 9 months after the case was brought, so this would be in 2023, they reached a settlement for $75 million. And I remember sharing information about this case as it was going on. And I remember big excitement when it came out, when it was first brought. And then I remember big disappointment and allegations of collusion and deep state and cover up and all those things when it was settled. But now we can go back to celebrating, because before reaching settlement, a lot of exhibits were filed in this case. Financial exhibits, documents. I like documents. Over 100 of them were filed. And after it was settled, the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, and other outlets sued to have these exhibits unsealed. And they have been. 135 of them. So all of these are now unsealed. You can go through and click on all of them and start looking at what they are. And I've done that for a few of them. I have to admit, I haven't found anything that I was just like, whoa, this is so crazy. But I did immediately find this one, which was an email exchange amongst the people in JPMorgan Chase Bank after it came out that this is from October 10th, 2007, and it was the public reporting about Jeffrey Epstein's plea deal. And it's a person in the bank asking, can you email me the recent newspaper article about him shortly pleading guilty to the charge? I want to send it to Andy and Ann and all these other people. Ann and Jess, Mary E, and Brent are meeting this afternoon to discuss. I mentioned about the PCS account. I also mentioned this meeting to Randy. It shows that there was a conversation and an awareness amongst the people in JPMorgan Chase Bank about Epstein and about that 2007 plea deal and the charges he was pleading guilty to, which means they knew the criminality he was engaged in. And they chose to continue doing business with him. That's just at a minimum what it means. There's so many documents here, and it'll take a while to go through of them. And are these more? There's more. On Halloween, even more were unsealed right here. So here's the stuff that was unsealed when I made that thread. 135 documents. 135 exhibits. And then we have 11 more. So now it's 136 that have been unsealed. So I put a link on my thread here over at @RealJustHuman on X. It's right here. If you want to go and find my post, you can find that link and you can go through all the exhibits yourself. You can also just go search on Court Listener, United States Virgin Islands v. JPMorgan Chase Bank, and you can find this case and you can find these exhibits. I'll keep perusing through these, see if I find anything that really stands out, and if I do, then I'll post them to this thread and they might wind up in a video. Just to give you guys a couple examples of some of the types of documents that are in these exhibits. These are exhibits that were put together by the U.S. Virgin Islands, their AG, in their suit against JPMorgan Chase. So these are stuff that are meant to show, let's just call it bad behavior by JPMorgan Chase in their handling of Epstein's accounts. And so some of the things you see in here, some of these exhibits, are suspicious activity reports, also called SARS, okay? And this one right here, as well as the next one, this one actually names Jeffrey Epstein as who it's about. This one is about an account, is who it puts in the name section. It gives an account number, right? When you scroll down and you look at, well, what is this SAR, the suspicious activity report, about? Keep scrolling. There's JPMorgan Chase giving all these identifying information. It's about Harry Beller. Well, Harry Beller, along with Richard Kahn, I believe is the name, are some of the accountants who worked for Epstein and are involved in thousands of transactions of moving money around, including to offshore accounts and accounts in the U.S. And we're talking about not millions of dollars being moved over the years, or tens of millions of dollars, or hundreds of millions of dollars. We're talking about over $1 billion being moved through Jeffrey Epstein's various companies and accounts that he had with JPMorgan Chase and other banks. He was a high-rolling client. I believe in here it gives you a reason for the suspicious activity. It gives it a name. I know the other document does. There's Indike, Darren Indike. That is the guy who manages the Epstein estate. It's somewhere here. I know it is. So far, it's just all this information about him and about these accounts and which accounts they're talking about. Where is it? There's Richard Kahn. There's Bella Klein, another one who handled his money. And I swear there's some suspicious EFT wire transfers is checked. Changes in spelling or arrangement of a name is checked. There's a reason for the suspicious activity. This is from 2007. 2 or more individuals working together. There it is. There it is. Possible procurement of certain types of services. Right there. Now we go to the next one. This one actually has Jeffrey Epstein's name. It is from, well, we'll get a date here, down here somewhere. More of the same types of information that was in the other one. This one, it's redacted who the person was that the money went to, okay? But look, birth year is 1985, and the gender is female. So you do the math. If this is a 2007, like the other one, you do the math on how old she was at that time. And then Epstein, another one, female, birth year 1979. Let's see, suspicious activity information. Let's see if anything's checked here. Changes in spelling or arrangement of name, 2 or more individuals working together. and other. And what's written in the other box? Possible procurement of services. Now, another example of what's in here, types of documents that are in here, is this report. I think this is an internal document. Yeah, this is an internal document that has to do with, it's a KYC profile and anti-money laundering. See this right here? AML. AML means anti-money laundering. And this is a flagging of behavior on this account and Richard Kahn. And it's talking about how, hey, we think there's some money laundering going on here. There's some suspicious activity. And we're escalating this because we think there's a direct match with ownership to a previously closed account that was terminated by the firm. Based on the aforementioned information, this escalation will be submitted through closure process due to the previously identified anti-money laundering risk. And it names Richard Kahn and Epstein right here. It says Epstein's funds potentially assisted in facilitating the trafficking ring and is one of two, and this guy, Kahn, is one of two executors of Epstein's will. This document, I think this is FinCEN. No, this is the due diligence report from JPMorgan Private Bank. Okay. This is their own due diligence report where they're examining their handling of some of his funds. And look, it has all of these people and accounts and entities that he had with them or that they moved money to for him. And down here, it gives a description. Summary of findings. Epstein is an existing client of Private Bank. In years past, he was an active brokerage client. Formerly, he was a money manager for high net worth individuals, most notably Leslie Wexner of Victoria's Secret fame and Bed Bath & Beyond brands, all those. Wexner was a JPM client and then retained Epstein as his advisor in the late 90s. Wexner terminated his relationship with Epstein in February of 2008. Mr. Epstein is well known to several JPMorgan Chase Private Bank employees and to Jess Staley. Mr. Epstein was convicted of a felony charge in 2008 and was to serve 18-month prison sentence. Jess Staley conferred with Stephen Cutler, and a decision was made to keep Mr. Epstein as a client. June 18th, 2010, Mr. Epstein is currently serving out his house arrest. Our view is that Mr. Epstein has served his time and is completing his duties to society. We are assessing the situation closely and monitoring the occasional news story regarding Epstein and civil lawsuits. Mr. Epstein is managing his own personal wealth. January 27th, 2011, update. A few news stories during 2010 connect Jeffrey Epstein to human trafficking. The coverage team, along with Catherine Keating and William Langford, all met to discuss the situation and agreed to enhance monitoring and documented a discussion with the client. Jess Staley discussed the topic with Epstein, who replied there was no truth to the allegations, no evidence, and was not expecting any problems. We will continue to monitor the accounts and cash usage. Here's another due diligence report. And this one just is grabbing a newspaper article from 2006 and putting it in here as part of their reporting so they can follow information in the public arena about their client. Here's another one doing the same thing, August 2006 article. Here's the FinCEN report, which FinCEN, if you don't know, is Financial Crimes Enforcement Network of the United States Treasury Department. And this is a 2002 report right here on Harry Beller. This might be a number of reports. Here's one on NES, one of his LLCs. Here's another one on JPMorgan Chase Bank. And it says, yeah, they're tracking wire transfers to these different accounts and these different amounts. And the checks were being cashed by an employee with the exception of the $40,000 check, which was cashed by Harry Beller because of the authorization needed. The account being funded by wire transfers from an account in the name of Epstein at Palm Beach National Bank. The account has received 10 wires totaling over $500,000. I think it says somewhere money laundering on here. I feel like this was the one that said specifically money laundering as what they were monitoring for. There it is. Suspicious activity information, $194,000 moved between January and March of 2002. Money laundering / structuring. Another FinCEN report. And this one also money laundering. Looks like it's for that same year in a similar amount, but it's later in that same year. Same thing here. Another report. And then this is another example, my last example from these exhibits. This is a deposition that was taken with someone from the bank, and they're asking him, like, they're about a rapid response meeting they had because they were aware of the trafficking cases coming out of the private bank. And the guy says he doesn't remember. But he's like, yeah, what did we just see, guys? We just saw these right here where they're talking about it. So maybe this person, maybe he wasn't in on the email chain. Let me see what his name is. This is a videotaped oral deposition of Bonnie Perry. That was from May 10th, 2023. And they're asking this person about, how do your rapid response meetings go? When do you escalate a risk assessment? Move it up and consider closing an account. And I think the reason they grabbed this one, I don't think it was to catch her in a lie. I think it had to do with her awareness of who knew what. Let's see. Yeah, he's asking about who got the control group risk management group. Yeah, that's what this transcript is about, is I think the awareness that they had. So those are the types of exhibits that are in here. While I'm have the record button depressed, I'll open up a couple more and just scan them. Here's another one that's an email about a Gawker news story. FBI set to reopen the case. This is from March 2011. And this is being circulated by people in the bank. JPMorgan Chase right there. Philip DeLuca, JPM Chase. But they chose to continue doing business with him. Here's one, Ghislaine Maxwell, Air Ghislaine Incorporated, $201,000. This is an internal JPMorgan Chase document. This one may just be proving that this account existed and that this much money was transacted across it, because it doesn't look like it says anything suspicious or like has some sort of summary that we're looking at something weird here. Yeah, I think that's what it is. It's just meant to show an account and how much money moved through it. Another suspicious activity report. Advisory, human trafficking. Another internal email between Bonnie Perry, that's who we just looked at, that deposition. It's from 2006, and Mary Case. And due diligence report, DDR. It's about updating a due diligence report looking at Epstein's activity. Another email. This is from Jess Staley to Oliver Gavinci, both JPMorgan Chase people. Read Jeffrey Epstein. Oliver, or Olivier. Ghislaine is a good friend of one of our very big clients in the U.S. This is from 2005. Can we please try to help her? I think she's looking for a basic checking account. An email from Jess Staley to a person saying, please help Ghislaine get a basic checking account. Jess, I put a call into Jeffrey Epstein yesterday and forwarded Olivier's contact information below. If it is for Ghislaine Maxwell, we already have an account open for her on our team and can purchase STG and euros here if this is all they are looking to do. Signed, Tad Smith, JPMorgan Chase. Cecilia of JPMorgan Chase, maybe? I don't know. The email is redacted. Cecilia just said that Jeffrey had an associate who was looking to open a private banking account in London to hold sterling and euros. Do you have any further information? Another email between JPMorgan Chase folks. Forwarded, Jeffrey Epstein is the subject line. Duffy agreed with moving off of Justin. This is 2013. Suggested using New York tri-state exec to Jeff, but he would prefer to keep it in the market. Would you be comfortable with our moving this relationship off of the banker's name and putting it on Tad? Keeps it in the region and market, but removes one of the banker's scorecard. He was the banker on the account briefly, and with our decision to exit, it might be fair to immunize Justin. This is a client that we fired. I believe John called the client the last couple of weeks. Let's see. Here are the numbers for Epstein. Since John just called him to exit the relationship, I assumed that it would take 3 months for him to move it out. And I list some of the $72+ million a year currently assigned to Justin Nelson. So this is them talking about exiting Epstein, but it kind of sounded like they were talking about moving it to a different bank so that they could get off the scorecard. I'm not sure I exactly understand it, but agreed that it should not be on the team. Problem will just get worse. Let's move to me. Interesting. So these are the kind of documents that are in this, and that the government would have used if this had gone to trial and all these exhibits would have come out. We'll see if there's more exhibits that are still sealed. We'll see if a few more end up getting unsealed in the future. But this is a great example. I've talked about this before, how sometimes the direct action cases give you a bunch of information, but sometimes it's these other ones that are they're kind of at the flank of the issue, and ones that track the money, they almost always end up telling a more complete story, right? Follow the money, and this is one of several cases that were brought against banks who did financial transactions for years with Epstein, even past his plea agreement, and didn't get off of it until 2015 or so, after he was getting exposed, and then even some of them continued until he was indicted.